Welcome to Time to Press Pause, real life stories from the C-suite. I'm your host, Ellen Williams, CEO of The Salient Strategist. And today I'm speaking with Dr. Shehzad Batliwala. Dr. Batliwala, DO, is founder of Visionary Doc and host of the Visionary Doc podcast. He is a first-generation Indian-American ophthalmologist, entrepreneur, and advocate for personal growth and resilience. From navigating the challenges of growing up as an undocumented immigrant, to family health issues, to founding a successful cell phone repair franchise, and breaking barriers in the medical industry, Dr. Batliwala's journey is a testament to perseverance and self-discovery. His passion for space exploration and his commitment to inner peace and purpose drive his innovative approach to both medicine and life. Dr. Batliwala is an active speaker and community servant, leveraging his diverse experiences to inspire others to embrace their unique journeys and find fulfillment beyond external validation. Welcome, Shehzad, to Time to Press Pause.
Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
This is exciting for me too, and I'm really happy that you're able to be a guest with me today. And I'm really happy to have you here as an entrepreneur and first and foremost as a doctor. So that really intrigues me into hearing what your press pause story is. So please share.
Well, sure. Thanks for having me. It's interesting, right? Doctor, entrepreneur. I mean, when you look at my CV, it looks really good. Looks really good on paper, right? And part of that, all of it is this chase for external validation that I've been on my entire life. Okay. I call it pathological ambition. And the source of that comes from a unique story. I grew up undocumented in the States. My parents came from India when I was 7 years old. I grew up undocumented until I was 22. We came on a tourist visa and we just never stopped touring. And so growing up, life was filled with uncertainty and this sense that I didn't belong, and I would lay on the roof of our house every night and just stare up at the stars. And that is where I would feel that sense of belonging that I craved. It was just something about being seen. Like I wanted to be seen so bad. I wanted to do something that would impress everyone, like the entire world, for external validation. After I got my legal status, I graduated college and then I read somewhere that they were sending doctors into space and ophthalmologists in particular. And there's a lot of research being done on eyes and zero gravity. And so I did that. I went to medical school. I became an ophthalmologist. I even published some research on the vision issues that astronauts have in space. That's how bad I wanted to be an astronaut. That's how bad I wanted to be seen. And so I just kept pushing myself and pushing myself and pushing myself. And I was able to intern at NASA, became an ophthalmologist, started a business along the way, although that was more out of this need for survival, honestly. Didn't grow up with a lot, and my parents were financially just very kind of struggling all the time. And growing up undocumented, I couldn't even get a job. And I started sort of just fixing phones out of a hobby that blossomed into a retail franchise business called Smartphone ER. And so I did all of these things. But really, if you ask me why, it was because of that chase for external validation. I thought doing these things would win me acceptance. But then I came home one day and I found that my wife had left. She was asking for months for me to get help for my unhealthy coping habits, for my pursuit of the just relentless drive for what I thought would win me acceptance. But I always refused. I thought I could handle it on my own. But when I came home to find that she had left, and rightfully so, We still have a good relationship. I still talk to her, and I'm like, I would have left me too. You know, like no joke. I just realized that all of the success that I had been chasing meant nothing if I couldn't connect with the people that I loved. I mean, I felt so alone. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. That was my press pause moment. That was my bottom. Throughout my time interning at NASA, I actually got to live with a Navy SEAL who had become an astronaut. And as we would sit there at the end of the day, he would describe to me what it felt like to be floating in space, vast emptiness of space. And he's standing there looking at planet Earth, this like big, blue, beautiful marble suspended in the cosmic void. That's when he described to me what's called the overview effect. It's this overwhelming sense of oneness. Astronauts describe it as a perspective shift in their mind, a sense of unity with all of humanity, a deep inner peace, that same feeling that was elusive for me my entire life. And when I finally pressed pause and took a step back and really dug deep and evaluated my entire life, I finally understood. I finally started to connect the dots of what that astronaut shared with me about his experience of the overview effect and my sense of disconnection all of my life and all the things that I had been chasing. It all started to come together, and I realized that belonging is not something you achieve. It's something you realize when you recognize that we are all part of the same human experience. And so that is really when I started to understand, okay, well, what am I chasing? What do I want to do with my life? I'm still ambitious, but it's not pathological. It's coming from this like deeper sense of purpose of what I want my life to mean. I want to take the lessons, the hard-earned lessons that I've learned in my life, and I want to hopefully inspire someone, even one person who can change their life for the better. So that's my story in a nutshell.
I think it was very inspirational. Unpacking it a little bit, that was
There's a lot to unpack in there.
it was well said because I could picture it. I'm a very visual person, and I pictured your story as you spoke. It was inspiring. I'm inspired. You had words that definitely connected with me. One question, I have lots of questions. My first question is during your pause, how long did you pause? How long did it take you to look back and absorb everything before moving forward?
Yeah, great question. So, kind of in the acute period right after that happened, I went on a 33-day retreat. No phones, no noise, a complete and total digital detox, if you will, where it's just me and seven other men who had very similar stories in terms of just chasing, chasing, chasing. I got to dig deep there. It's really interesting how when you take your phone away, there's a lot of time all of a sudden. I did not realize how much time I was spending just doom scrolling and just, feeling bad for myself because of this picture that social media portrayed of how others' lives are. And so when I really disconnected and dug deep into books on childhood traumas and things like that. I mean, it really comes down to that, right? It really comes down to your childhood programming. Childhood trauma is kind of like this like buzz phrase. I feel like everyone just kind of throws it around, but that's how we were programmed, all of us. And you take that programming and you show up in your adult life. And so unless you do exactly what you're talking about, unless you stop and pause and almost have an out of body experience where you look at your programming from the outside in and start to deprogram some of those learned behaviors and learned belief systems that aren't serving us anymore. I think that's how you move forward as sort of this reborn adult in life. So that 33-day period of my life was probably the most profound experience just in terms of gaining self-awareness that I've ever had. And then since then, I mean, I press pause every week. I go to therapy every week. I talk about my feelings, which is really hard to do. As men, it's frowned upon to cry and to talk about your feelings. But I'm like, it's the hardest thing I do. And I've done a lot of hard things. The hardest thing to do in the world is to really be honest with yourself and be like, yeah, I do feel that way about that. Why? And start to unravel it.
The hardest thing to do is to be honest with yourself. I think that's profound. And when I started the podcast Time to Press Pause, it was in a response to things going quickly. Things were seemed to be a fast pace, and I was like, things don't need to be going this quick.
Yeah.
But your story brought me back to a pause that I'm actually shocked I hadn't connected to previously. And this was back when I was married to my first husband and feeling like I had everything, or I had everything I was supposed to have: the house, the car, the kids, with the fence. And was sitting there and I heard them all playing outside. I was so empty and I was like, this can't be it. This, like, I've achieved the American dream. This can't be it. This can't be everything. And that really launched my, what I would call my spiritual journey. And I've read tons of books, a lot of self-help books, and it was exactly what you were saying, sort of unprogramming beliefs that don't work for you anymore, and just things you've learned. And you've learned from people who had the best of intentions in sharing their beliefs and what they had learned. And one thing that I've learned from this podcast is feedback is a gift, which I knew, but what I learned is you don't have to take everybody's feedback. Like, you don't
Mm.
have to internalize it. You can listen to it, but if it doesn't really fit, you don't
Yeah.
need to. What I connected with there was that introspection, and I truly am shocked that it's season two, and I hadn't connected with that. And that just goes to show how many pauses someone has in the course of their life. But I did want to get back to, it was self-awareness. So self-awareness is what I would also refer to as being present.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a constellation of things.
A
Knowing
constellation of things.
what I did there. Yeah. No pun intended there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's being present and really being in touch with your mind and your body. That is what self-awareness is. Like, I don't mean to trivialize it so much, but I really do think it comes down to that. Every action that you and I take comes down to the fact that we are chasing a feeling. We just want to feel a certain way. We want to feel secure. We want to feel happy. We don't want to feel anxiety. We're either running towards a feeling or we're running away from a feeling. And that is what dictates our actions. And so if we can be present and really tap into our mind and our body and think about what is it that we're feeling, where in our body are we feeling it, like the physical sensation of it, and then rationalize it. Why are you feeling that way? That requires brutal honesty, radical honesty with yourself. Why are you feeling that way, really? It's just you and you in this room. You can be honest with yourself. You can't do that when you're not present, when you're not fully present. And if you can do that, that is the epitome of self-awareness. Because then you can decide how you want to take that next action. Is it appropriate given the context of what you've just discovered about yourself? You're chasing this feeling or you're running away from this feeling. Do you need to take that next action? I think that's what it comes down to, for me at least.
I like that. I haven't gone as deep as that. One thing I do, and this has worked for many years, is when I'm starting to feel bad. And that can be defined stressed, upset, mad, not good, anything that's in the bad bucket. When I start to feel that, and I am present to the physical feeling of bad, I stop and say, I don't want to feel this way. Why am I feeling this way? I a little more than scratch the surface about what you're talking about, but I tend to focus on just when I'm feeling bad.
I think you and I are talking about the same thing. I'm just putting more words to that feeling of bad. We learned about it in at that retreat. There's a feelings wheel. Bad is like a giant pie, but then when you go deep into bad, there's different types of bad feelings, like anxiety, like disconnection, like irritation. That's all it comes down to is really articulating and being as descriptive as possible about exactly what it is you're feeling. Because if you can do that, then it helps with the rationalization process. When people feel bad, or pick your word, we act to go away from that feeling of bad. So whether it's eating junk food or alcohol or drugs or whatever. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say we commit actions to run away from feelings or to chase a particular feeling. In my case, workaholism, same thing.
Absolutely. And I've been there as well. And many of the people on this podcast, when you're talking about time to press pause, it's because they didn't,
Yeah.
that they identified and they have a story, an impactful story about pressing pause. I do want to get back to one thing you said, because when you said it, it really hit me. I don't want it to get lost in the middle of a conversation. You said it's just you and you in the room. And you were talking about being in touch with your mind, right?
Yeah.
And the things we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
It's just you and you in the room. Just the way you phrase that made so much sense to me. In fact, I was at a event and one of the speakers said, there'll be times in your life where people will say things that make you feel small. Don't be that person.
Yes.
And that hit me as well. Self-talk is a whole nother conversation. And
Uh,
it's amazing the things we say to ourselves.
oh my gosh, we are the stories we tell ourselves. It just shocks me because I was that guy. Like, man, what happened to me that I got so good at lying to myself? I started believing my own BS. It just kind of goes to show you how our experiences affect us to the point, shame is a powerful feeling. It can totally convolute your thinking and get you to lie to yourself like you believe it. Radical honesty with yourself. If you can bring your ego down, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm talking to me here.
I hear you, although I
I
am
have,
accepting your
yeah,
commentary.
I have been that guy and I am still not like I'm like, hey, I'm cured. This doesn't work that way. It is now I know. So I have to hold myself to an even higher standard of accountability because I can't BS myself anymore. I know now. It's always mind-boggling to me the stories we tell ourselves and how much we start to believe in them ourselves. And so part of my journey has been to just tell myself a better story, be kinder to myself.
You have given us many, many pieces of advice. I'm going to ask for one more. What advice would you have for an entrepreneur, leader, CEO as to when they would identify it would be time to press pause?
Well, that's a good one. Don't let yourself get to a bottom like I did, because I'll tell you what, it can always be lower. So take the bottom that you've already hit. If you can be radically honest with yourself, you've hit a bottom. there's an aspect of your life that is just not great. Don't let it get worse. Take that, really reflect, be honest with yourself, ask yourself the hard questions, and press pause.
Don't hit bottom. I think bottom is something that for most people would be identifiable, or at least on the path to bottom. So don't hit bottom, I think is great advice.
And which part of your life is on the way down? That's what needs to be addressed.
I agree. Thank you so much, Shehzad, for being here and for sharing your wisdom, truly. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Well, I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity. Yeah, I'm still in the process of acquiring wisdom. So I'm honored you thought that I had something to share. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Time to Press Pause. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Batliwala, visit visionarydoc.com. If you'd like to learn more about me, visit thesalientstrategist.com. And please listen again wherever you listen to your podcasts.